Train is coming all around the world, talking about freedom. Yeah, bring it on.
What we have here is a Harry Thomas special report. Today is March 18, 2009. All the information I talk about can be located at harrythomas.info under the special report section. This come out March 11, 2009. CNSNews. Penny Starr wrote, Undeclared war on Mexican border, greater challenge than Afghanistan, congressmen say. The violence along the U.S. Mexican border is the biggest threat to the nation's security, members of the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Homeland Security said at back-to-back hearings on Tuesday. And I wanted to revisit this because this is a story that I did cover on the Harry Thomas Show exactly a year ago, which included the reporter Sarah A. Carter, who originally broke the story. Listen to this.
Our border, but now the U.S. Border Patrol is warning its agents to look out for Mexican military units. You heard me right. Mexican military units on American soil that could be a threat to their life. With me now, the reporter who broke that story, Sarah Carter, from the Inland Valley Daily Bulletin. Thank you so much for being with us, Sarah. Talk about the story that you stumbled across. You were just doing reporting on immigration work, and you uncovered a bombshell. Talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I spent the last year covering our border, both the southern border in Mexico and the northern border out here, all the way from San Diego into Arizona. And one of the things that I had heard often was from Border Patrol agents is these incursions, Mexican military crossing our border, assisting drug smugglers and also human smugglers across the border. I heard this over and over again, and not only from the Border Patrol agents, but also from the immigrants themselves, who would hide on the other side of the border before they made their run from these drug smugglers and from the Mexican military. So it began an investigation for me that started late last year, actually early last year into late last year, when I was able to uncover the documents.
And Sarah, you're saying that the Mexican military is actually crossing into America repeatedly?
I'm not only saying that. I believe I know that. I believe the documents prove that. These documents show 216 incursions over the last 10 years of Mexican military into the United States.
And I want to play this because I found this, and this is key, is the interview in which she talks about how she came across these documents and started her investigation.
If there are Mexican military incursions, then somebody in our government had to have been documenting them. So I started to follow that lead and contacting my sources in Washington and contacted my sources in the Border Patrol, and eventually what happened was somebody leaked me the documents and showed me that there was.
We're about half a mile away from Neely's Crossing. This is where U.S. law enforcement officials from Texas were in an armed standoff with men dressed in Mexican military uniforms. Right behind me you can see the roadway, which was used by a Humvee and other SUVs transferring narcotics into the United States across the Rio Grande River.
We got in pursuit of a pickup truck that was loaded with contraband, and we came down the levee. The vehicle turned right here, went into the river right there and got stuck. On the other side, right there on that flat area, was a military Humvee, and I saw 3 military personnel. I walked to the middle of this walk across the bridge. An officer from Mexico walked to the middle of the bridge. I said, "Sir, can I have that gentleman that's over there sopping wet?" He advised me no. So he went back where he came from. I came back over here. We pulled the pickup and the contraband out of the river. We took that, and he took the driver.
I had originally 216 documented incursions. There's another document that shows 236 incursions, but there's others that believe it's much more than that. It's just that it hadn't been documented in the same fashion. It's not that Mexico's sending their army in and invading our nation. It's that the cartels have overrun most of the border towns from the information that I've gathered from my sources in Mexico, and it's like payoffs. They're purchasing military units to assist them in their cartel battles. So it's really a war between the Juarez cartel, the Gulf cartel, the Tijuana cartel. They're all vying for power, and so they gather these military units. It's not necessarily that the units are there to fight our law enforcement officials. They're there to protect specific cartels' merchandise to cross the border into the United States. There are a lot of members in Congress who are concerned about this, because I think at this point in time, especially post 9/11, they realize it's not that terrorists would come running across the border with a nuclear arm. That's not the issue, or a weapon of mass destruction. What is the issue is that if you have enough money, you can purchase the cartels, and the cartels have no loyalty, not to our nation and not to Mexico. They have loyalty to the amount of economic stronghold that they have and the money that they make. So I think the fear for a lot of our congressional leaders is not only the drugs that are entering our country, the cocaine, methamphetamine, opium and heroin, I mean all of the drugs that are moving across the border into the U.S., but it's the fact that the cartels are so well connected and so easily bought. These issues are now taking the forefront of Washington, and I don't think they can be shoved away anymore. I think there's so much evidence out there. Our stories have shown so much evidence that it can no longer be ignored. Before, it was just a rumor. Now it's become a fact. So Washington has no other choice but to look at these issues and decide for themselves in congressional hearings what they're going to do about it. If they choose to do nothing, then they will be responsible for whatever happens at the border if something does happen. But at least the facts are out in the public, and at least the public has the ability now to take a look and ask their congressional leaders or ask the president if that's something that they're concerned about, to take a look at that and say, hey, you're going to do something about this or what? Right now, I think what we're looking at is, come next election, the immigration issue is going to be centerfold. And in Washington right now, it's taking on the number one topic being discussed in Washington at this point. And I don't think it's going to go away.
Now you got to remember, the United States and Mexican governments funded and created most of these drug cartels, and this was revealed on the Glenn Beck show.
We're the ones who created the, the gang, I can't remember the name of the gang, the Zetas. We're the ones who trained those killers. We trained them to be on the side, and then all of a sudden the drug cartels say, you know what, we'll pay a little bit better than the Mexican government. We've given them all of the eavesdropping and all of this equipment. You really believe that the Mexican army is not going to, that they're going to win this war?
And there was coverage last year on the Lou Dobbs show.
Startling new evidence tonight of just how widespread corruption is within Mexican law enforcement. 2 Mexican police officials are under arrest in the kidnapping and killing of a wealthy businessman's son. And tonight, reports of a brazen Mexican military incursion into this country, this time holding one of our border agents at gunpoint. Casey Wyan reports.
A spokesman for the Mexican government in a statement said, quote, law enforcement operations have led from time to innocent incursions by both U.S. and Mexican law enforcement personnel and military units into the territory of both nations, and in particular along non-demarcated areas of our border. We always try to solve these incidents in a cooperative fashion. The Border Patrol has acknowledged that that is the case in the incident at Ajo. Kitty?
But Casey, are the Mexican authorities admitting it's easy to cross the border?
They are admitting it's easy to cross the border. And in this particular case, what's interesting is that talking to the head of the Border Patrol Union in Tucson, who spoke with people who were there at the scene, there's barbed wire fence in that area of the border, and there's also vehicle barriers not far away from where this incident took place. So from the Border Patrol's standpoint, at least the Border Patrol's union's standpoint, the border was clearly marked, and there was no reason for these Mexican military officers to be on the U.S. side of the border, and certainly no reason for them to be holding a Border Patrol agent at gunpoint for about 6 to 7 minutes before backup arrived. Kitty.
Thanks very much, Casey Wyan.
Now, we must do something to secure our borders in this country. It is time to let the American people know that there are more urgent things going on instead of stuff over in Afghanistan and Iraq, but right here close to home, securing our borders and taking care of this border war that is going on in Mexico, where they're just chopping people's heads off and leaving them on the doorsteps of the authorities. And this story should not be in the back burners. I want to thank you for listening to this special report. All the information can be found at harrythomas.info.
Train, I'm train and leaving.